Hi, Barbara. I wanted to whip up a video because this is an important question for a lot of our members that they're used to working with one product type and then they get to a Gen 11 and it seems very overwhelming. So I want to simplify sort of my answer to basically say, you know what, there are five big differences between the Gen 10 and the Gen 11. Now, the first one that you won't even see on the surface is actually the number one reason why people move to Gen 11s is it's better mobility. In the Gen 10, we have a responsive style sheet, so when you look at the site on a phone, it sort of puts everything into the single column and reduces a lot of the content and the bells and the whistles to just what you need for a mobile phone. What we have here with the Gen 11s is we're using a CSS framework designed by the same people who created Twitter. It's called the Twitter Bootstrap framework. It's the most popular CSS framework in the world, and we're using that because obviously it's with a more popular CSS backend, working with different devices and whatnot. It has a lot more testers. There's millions of people testing the CSS out, instead of just me creating my own and having our own group of customers do it. So better mobility, and what that basically means is I'll just sort of preview an about page here out of the template for a second and see if I can sort of explain that a little bit better. So here is the an example of the about.html page with all its bells and whistles and bits and pieces in there. Now when we scoot this down for mobile, in other words laptop and phone, it basically keeps all the bits and pieces. Right, so basically with the mobility, in the Generation 10, what we did is we sort of turned some of the things off, but what we're doing with the Bootstrap, it allows us to resize, as you can sort of see here. Things can resize a little bit better in terms of the which device you're looking at. In other words, it changes to fit the device a little bit more effectively. Than the Generation 10. So if mobility is hugely important, and it does for some, it's not so for others, it really depends on your client, then that's when a Generation 11 sort of really comes in. So that was number one. Now the other things were, we have something called in-page components. So the about page, there's a lot of stuff going on, but it's one of those things where I suggest to people, I've thrown everything in the kitchen sink into the page design because it's easier to take things out, or it's easier to grab just a more generic page and use that instead. But if you want a really fancy page, then we have pages that are sort of designed for that, and the about page is a good example where we have sort of an image widget here, and we have little boxes with news that sort of open and close and expand, and we have image rotators that do all sorts of cool things here. Well, one of the biggest differences, because we've added all this additional complexity, if you wish to use it, is we've put what we call the library components. We've made it a little bit easier to access them so you know where to go. Here's the about carousel in the about page. Now all you need to do really is just you would right click and you would open file, and there you go. There is your library file open for you. You can now just double click on an image and replace it like you would replace any image in your Generation 10, say your Nevo slider. Exact same process from that point forward. When you're done, you close it down, and then this is just a placeholder screenshot, but the reason for that is so you can just open the file directly and it's neat and tidy versus having a bunch of code all over the page, right? Same with the team carousel. Now you can just right click on the component right in the page, go change your pictures, your names, your descriptions, right? And when you're done, you close it down, and then this component is now updated. You can preview your page in your browser, and away you go. So although there is a lot more stuff in the page, we've actually tried to make it simplify the process of updating that stuff, if you want to call it that. Now, the good news is we still have page 1, 2, 3, and 4. Good old page 1, 2, 3, 4 with a simple sort of page 1 is just it has your title, it has a place for an image. You can get rid of that if you don't want it. You can drag it around to the other side if you don't need it or want it differently, but it's just a one column layout. It's the simple layout that you can start with. And if you want this for your about page instead of the more complex about page, not a problem. You can just overwrite the about page with your existing one. You can move this to the pages folder, right? The page 2, for example, this is a sort of a typical Generation 10 layout where we have a left column and then we have the center column here. But what we've done is we've removed the navigation from some of the pages, but we also, in our Pro package, we still have a 2-column list with a side menu right here. Here's an example right here with a drop menu like so, as opposed to a flyout menu, simply because it works a little bit better on mobile devices when it drops straight down. It doesn't work very well when it flies out to the side. There's a tabs thing here, tabs component if you wish to use it. If not, you just select it and delete it out of the page, right? So, in-page components, they're all optional. You can easily remove them from a page now. There's actually not too much to think about when removing stuff now, because you would open up your page and you go, I don't need a particular component, and because you can now just simply click on it to select that component, you can then just delete it from the page and it's gone. So if you don't want the tabs, you just click on it and delete and it's gone, just like that. So it makes it a little bit easier for working with in terms of, yeah, there's more complexity, but it's hopefully simpler to do things with. The other thing was page tutorials. Believe it or not, what we've done, we always have our generic tutorials that sort of cover all of our different generations. We have a Generation 10 set of tutorials. We have a Generation 11 set of tutorials. We actually have a specific set of tutorials for this particular template, or the 4 templates based off of this code set. And that's the Blacktop, the New Metro, the Modern, and the Marvel. All those 4 templates are exactly the same except for their actual look, but what you actually get inside and the components are all identical. So we've created tutorials for each page in your site. So if you're wondering about how to update, for example, on the About single page here, how do I go and change the picture here for Bob Smiley? Well, we actually have a tutorial that shows you that if you need that information, and all the tutorials are actually listed for each individual page, as opposed to talking about components specifically like we would have a Nevo slider tutorial for Generation 10. Well, what we do is we have a tutorial for the About page, and then any components on that page, we would have a specific tutorial for that. So it helps you to identify where you need help. So if you're saying, I'm trying to update this services page here and there's a thing in it, I don't know what it is or how to update it, right? But I really want to use it. Well, then we have a tutorial specifically for this page and for that particular component. And of course, every Generation 11 package has sort of the page 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's the basic, the standard, and the Pro packages. And then the standard and the Pro have we also have these here, these extra pages in here. The Pro package we add the side menus to, and then we have a lot of different optional layouts in here as well. Different photo galleries is probably the biggest thing that are, anybody who buys the Pro package, they're probably buying it for the gallery. I'll just show you this page here. So if photos are important to you, we have this gallery right here, which is kind of unique because when you click on an image, it opens up a larger picture of that image down below along with details. Now I've used members as an example, but you could have any type of image in here, and then you could have links and information about that image. You can link to another web page. So that's one of the more popular items. And then we have the portfolio, okay, as another very popular, where we can categorize different pictures. So we could have pictures categorized under products, and it organizes the images into, products or services, right, and departments. I've just given it generic names right here with generic pictures, but each image can have a link to a web page, or what we call the Lightbox pop-up here, which is really popular, where we can put images into a pop-up for a photo gallery type effect. So this is one of those things where there's a lot to it. Once you go through the instructions and the information and sort of get used to working with it, really handy, and it gets used a lot. Probably of all the questions I have, that people have about the Generation 11s, is these portfolios right here, because it's such a great way for organizing pictures, and you can organize a lot of them. You can view all of your images, or you can just do certain categories, right? And then within those pictures you can also have it pop up into the light box, and then you can file through and look at all the different pictures that are related to that category in a light box pop-up like that. So like I said, that is one of the more advanced things though, but like everything else, there's tutorials that go along with it. So just in terms of the differences between the Gen 10 and Gen 11, yeah, there is a lot more to the Gen 11s. They're a lot more flexible. We've added a lot more to it, but it's one of those things where it's kind of like you don't have to bite off the whole, eat the whole piece of cheese. You can Swiss cheese it, just little holes, because although we have all these different pages in here, you can create obviously a backup or a copy of your website, and you can remove any pages, any of the more complicated pages you don't want to use. You can get rid of them. Then you can use page 1 through 4, and you can create as many new pages as you want based on a simpler layout. And as you need to add more complexity to your site, you can then, from your backup, you can just drag in copies of those pages, right? Or you can just move everything into the pages folder, or create a new folder and move everything in there that you're not using, and then when you need them you can drag them out. But you don't have to start off using all those pages. They're just there because, you know, kind of like it's easier to replace a page, it's easier to remove content from a page than it is to try and add stuff to a page, if you know what I mean. So we've given you the whole Swiss Army knife, the whole kitchen sink to start off with, and you can scale it down from there to be as complex or as incomplex or simple as you want it to be, right? You could use page 2 here. You know, you could just open this one up right here. You could go, you know, File, Save As, and you can save it right over top of your index page, and now you have a nice simple index page, and away you go. And just like your Generation 10, we still have the library folder, and then we have we've just organized the information here a little bit differently. Anything that's shared or global, and you recognize the website name, and you'll probably recognize, you know, social icons and the footer and the copyright. We've used a lot of the same names, the menu top, the menu side, for example. Same naming convention, just it's in the shared folder now, as opposed to, you know, just the library folder or the components folder. So we've renamed things just a little bit, but the concepts are all the same. You open up your website name, right? You can, you know, there's the name of the web right there. Little instruction: switch to code view to edit the website name, and in the video I tell you why, because for the website name we have 2 different colors, right? So there's the first word and there's the second word, right? And all you need to do is change, you know, modern and then your second word, or second, third, and fourth words, or however you want to break them up. But that's how we get that nice multicolor logo. See, we have one font type and size here. It's a narrower font, and then we have a wider font for the second one, and that's how we spread it out or make it a little bit different. We break it up in the website name here, modern, and then we wrap the second word in a span class and give it a different class name, and we're able to style it a little bit differently to make it more up with the times. Or of course you can just use a graphic and use that instead. So anyways, I wanted to give a video to sort of run through things if you're kind of sitting on the edge and you're not sure which way to go. You know, that's what we're here for as well. If you have any questions, we can definitely help you out. And if we don't talk to you before New Year's, you have a great New Year's.